that next. What's going to be next? Because on the slide you saw Genesis. I think it's a good way to move to Genesis and talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Well, let's see. I just want to say, how's the market reacting now in the last couple of days? I thought that would be interesting. So we had
Yeah,
a nice big breakdown. So what was this? What was this last event? So was
that
that
was
the
last
hackers?
week. No? That was the events of the FTX, and you can see
Okay.
that since then the market is very volatile. It's going up, going down. We went down as to
Yeah.
15,300. Now we're back to 1,600, 500.
Yeah.
Everyone's waiting for to see if there's more pain
Yeah.
along the
Okay.
road. And you see the fear and greed is also a little bit stabilized on the 20. Was last week the same. So not so much change, but there's still extreme fear in the market if you compare it to where we were in November, or where we were even in March. You know, we were on the
Yeah.
50 and the 60s, and now we are reaching the bottom again on 20.
Yeah, and now we're going like, okay, like we have with Luna, we had the second effects were Celsius. Now everybody's of course wondering what will FTX cost? What kind of other companies will be influenced by not having any kind of assets guaranteed? And what is the verdict on that? What's the verdict on that?
So let's talk a little bit about Genesis. Genesis is a prime brokerage, and Genesis has stopped withdrawal a week ago after the FTX debacle. And maybe we should talk a little bit about what Genesis is, and we'll let another expert to explain as well what DCG. But if you go back just 1 second, so Genesis is a prime brokerage, and they do three things. So prime brokerage, and they're the biggest in the industry, maybe the only one that's really in the TradFi world, in the normal financial world. Those things are very common. But Genesis is the first one that is catering for the crypto business, and they do two things. So they have assets in custody. They do over-the-counter trading. So every
So,
trading
one second. Custody assets. It means I can basically leave my private keys there and feel good about it.
you not, because you're a retailer, but institutions can do that as well. That's what a prime brokerage do.
Mhm.
Genesis did that with Gemini. Gemini, it's another exchange of the Wickelson brothers, and they had the Earn program. And if you are an Earn program and you can do the staking, Genesis was powering that behind. So that's
Uh-huh.
one of the things they did. Over-the-counter trading is done with big transactions through via between one institution to another, or very big parties who want to buy a lot of Bitcoin or a lot of Ethereum. And they were doing that as well. And the other things they did, and that's where they went into problems with 3AC, Three Arrows, and FTX, is the extend credit. And because of that, because of the extended credit to pay, first of all, 3AC, and a few months ago, their mother company needed to give them to write off the bad loan from 3AC and to create a new loan from the mother company, DCG. And that was the first pain, and the second pain is now the FTX, and they have extended credit there, and they lost a lot of money. So in
Yeah.
total, we're looking at, they stopped withdrawal, and they declared that they are looking at a whole of $1.1 billion that they don't have. And that's
What is a billion? Is it Is it 1 billion, or is it like?
1.1 billion,
Huh?
1.1 billion. That's the whole they have right now.
But is that so? That is a relatively small amount of money. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm always in Holland. If we say billion, we mean trillion. But you just mean a billion.
yeah, a milliard, yeah. And
Okay.
that's
Is that the total amount of exposure they have also in the custody assets? I mean, or is it much more? They probably have a lot more assets there from
that's
customers.
the whole they have. They have a whole of 1.1 milliard, and that's why they stopped the withdrawal. And if they don't manage to raise that money, they are going to go to bankruptcy.
Oh, they have a whole of 1.1. Okay,
They have
good.
a whole of 1.1
Yeah,
million.
let's listen to how other people are explaining about that company. So
Yeah.
let's
So
see.
just before that, Vincent, we're looking at DCG, and that's the mother company of Genesis. And there's a lot of more companies related to DCG, and that's where Coin Bureau can explain it very well. What are we looking at?
Okay.
About to get spoiled. The concerns around all this are a big part of why crypto prices are heading south today too. So, for those unfamiliar, DCG is a crypto behemoth. It's invested in a number of companies, and that portfolio includes some of the most well-known names in the industry, including BitGo, Blockstream, Chainalysis, Circle, Coinbase, Coindesk, Dapper Labs, June Analytics, Etherscan, eToro, Fireblocks, and FTX. And that's before we get to G in the alphabet, which is where things get really spicy. More on that in a moment. In short, DCG is a big, big deal, and its CEO, Gary Silbert, is one of the most powerful and elusive people in the industry. Which brings us to those Gs. Now, among its several subsidiaries, DCG counts both Genesis Trading and Grayscale, not exactly small fry themselves. Now, Genesis is a prime broker. That is, a deal that offers custody of crypto assets, over-the-counter or OTC trading, that's the sort of buying and selling of crypto assets not available to us mere mortals, and it also extends credit to its clients for good measure. Think of it as sort of a crypto investment bank. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Genesis, that's most likely because, well, it caters for big institutional clients and not peasants like us.
There you go, bringing class into it again.
Sorry. Now, prime brokers make markets in OTC deals in which the assets being sought are sometimes not listed on exchanges. That means that they'll act as an intermediary in an OTC deal. They make the market. However, sometimes they find themselves in a position where they can't find a counterparty for a trade, but they are still obligated to take the risk of a trade until a counterparty can be found. This is called an odd lot, and it's one of the risks that middlemen like Genesis face. The upside is, of course, that market making and brokerage can be incredibly profitable, especially when you're doing it for rich institutions. If you want a more detailed rundown of what prime brokers like Genesis do, then this tweet thread by Ram Aluwalia is incredibly helpful. Link below. Now, Genesis is also one of the largest lenders and borrowers in the crypto market. And this is where it faces some of its biggest risks, including that of a mismatch in the duration of its assets and or liabilities. For example, as in the tweet thread I just mentioned, there's the example of loaning crypto out to funds for longer terms, i.e. long duration. However, they borrow funds from retail users at shorter duration and redemption through, for example, Gemini Earn. When retail rushes to withdraw from these products, they put the broker in a bind as they need to call back their loans early, which costs money. On top of this, as a prime broker, you have counterparty risk in case any of your institutional borrowers don't repay. Now, one of Genesis's recent counterparties was none other than Three Arrows Capital, which cost Genesis, quote, hundreds of millions. The Genesis CEO at the time, Michael Morrow, resigned as a result of this, and Genesis had to be bailed out by its parent company, DCG. Another good example of how quickly contagion can spread in the crypto market. Since then, of course, the crypto market has gone from bad to worse. There are concerns that Genesis might have had loans out to several CeFi lending platforms whose subsequent failures could mean that Genesis has a lot of loans outstanding that it might now have to recall. Now, Genesis's exposure to FTX is a bit murkier, and Genesis initially claimed it had limited exposure to the now collapsed exchange. In a pattern that is now becoming wearingly familiar, however, that later changed to, when we said no exposure, we did mean that our derivatives business actually has $175 million stuck on FTX, but, you know, it's all good, or something along those lines. This resulted in Daddy DCG having to fork out $140 million to keep the wolf from Genesis's door, an amount that now pales in comparison to the reported $1 billion that the company later claimed it needed to be able to honor client withdrawals.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it may be a bit complex for people.
No, but I mean, no, there's this DCG. It's a huge company with a hell of a lot of companies, but they also said that at one point that FTX was part of it, or did I misunderstand that?
they invested in FTX, so they lost. But there have been many companies like Sequoia and other VCs that invest in FTX. So they lost that investment, but that has nothing to do with liquidity and cash flow. They have a big problem they have a hole of 1.1 million, and there's no one really who's looking to rescue them. And the fear right now in crypto, maybe we go to the next slide so we can look at it. The fear in crypto that they won't be able to bail out, and they go into Chapter 11 again to bankruptcy. And if that will happen, Vincent, then I expect the market to go down. Those are a couple of tweets from the last couple of days. Absolutely zero bids for Genesis and DCG race.
Yeah.
Preparing for bankruptcy. There's
and
another.
They just want this company Genesis needs $1 billion, but the amount of assets they have, like where they basically have these where they store the private keys, that is way much more. I mean, it's really if the damage to the industry could be much bigger than $1 billion, because $1 billion in all these terrible things where 50 billion this and 40 billion that and 10 billion with FTX. 1 billion doesn't sound like a lot, but there's a lot more involved in
We'll
that.
talk about it in a second. We'll touch Grayscale in a second. We'll try to do that. But so there's another tweet saying, so how will in end DCG will be able to raise sufficient funds? They already bailed out Genesis once with 3IC. Who will take the risk? Who will take the risk? The crypto market is not very attractive right now to big institutional investors, and they may have to go to bankruptcy. So that's where it stands now. There's another tweak to the story, and you just mentioned it. DCG owns Grayscale, and Grayscale is the biggest Bitcoin trust in the world with 360k Bitcoins in their assets. Now those assets are safe, and they have a custodial in Coinbase, so that's not a problem. But you can see that the trust share has been down a lot recently and has reached a discount of more than 50%. And they won't be able to collapse, but if they need to release those funds and in order to survive the company, that means that there will be 360k Bitcoin in the market soon. And that may mean that it will have a big sales pressure. So I don't know if that will happen. Grayscale is part of DCG. DCG is in problems because of Genesis, 1.1 million hole, and that's where we stand right now. So
okay. And how many of those companies, which I didn't know before, and which are behind the scenes doing business with all the big guys, where we are never invited to? How many others are there? Do you have any idea? Because I mean, I can imagine there's 10 more.
I think those are the biggest. So Barry Silverstein was very early in the crypto space in 2012, and I mean, if you look at his portfolio, it's pretty impressive. He built an empire. The empire may be fall or not, but it's a strong CEO. He knows what he's doing. I personally think that he won't file for Chapter 11. I think he will manage to get to 1.1 million. It's going to be very exciting to see what's going to happen in the coming days. He needs to get that funds in the coming days. Grayscale, I don't think there is any problem there. I mean, I don't see him resolving that. I don't think he will sell it because he earns good money. He earns a lot of millions in commission on this Grayscale fund. So there's no reason for him to blow off this trust. But we don't know what we don't know. We've seen that several times in the last couple of months. So let's stay cautious and see what's happened. But there's some good news as well, right? So,
and I mean, I would say, Idan, you're really doing a great job in making me very excited about it. I mean, I always look at, okay, well, just like everything is down 80%. I've been in this situation 10 times. I mean, I read in the Financial Times of today that it's pretty clear that crypto is a scam and it's going away totally. So I go, okay, this is good news. When people who do not know anything about it start saying this kind of stuff, there's two kinds of problems. When people do not have any knowledge of the industry and say, hey, you need to buy it. Like if the hairdresser basically starts talking about it, you're in trouble because we're on top of the world. And whenever all the columnists of the traditional financial industry are saying crypto is a scam and it's going totally away, then I think also this is another big moment, but that's a big moment when we hit the bottom. So that's, is there any positive news in the
But
crypto world or outside the crypto world?
I think there's a couple of things. So first of all, we don't have that slide. If you go back to the next slide, there's actually the macroeconomics, and we saw that so much impact the macroeconomic had on the crypto industry. It all started with the Fed, switching the monetary policy and start increasing rate. It would never happen if we had stayed on a 0% interest rate policy. And it looks like we are reaching
inflation is going down, right? I mean,
inflation is going down.
That is also a pain because the whole building industry is now collapsing in America. It's down 30-40% compared to last quarter. We see that happening all over the world. We see that the normal, it's with employment is still doing very well, and consumers are still spending a little bit of money. But I think that will be the next step. We'll go into a recession, but they actually expect that the recession will be reasonable. Won't be too big. I mean, isn't that what everybody is predicting?
Again, I've heard so many opinions, and the one thing I can tell you, Vincent, no one knows. The only thing we know that the inflation has probably reached a peak. We see that the Fed is realizing that, and it may start lowering the rate hikes, and maybe in Q1 will stop completely. Maybe at some stage it will start to pivot and will start reducing the rates, and that should trigger a bull market to their own risk assets like Bitcoin. So we need to reach the bottom. The FTX contagions need to come down. We need to realize that all the companies are right now safe who managed to survive. There are no other big entity that's going to fall. And once we reach that, and that I think in the coming weeks, it's going to be very clear whether we have another big bankruptcy or not. And after that, we wait for the macroeconomic conditions to be more positive, and we'll start seeing that the crypto market is recovering. That's how I see it. And I think you have a nice one from the besties.
Yeah, I just want to say I have a couple of things. You and I on Saturday. What do we do on Saturday? We go to the sport club and we listen to the besties. And could you explain who these 4 people are?
Those are 4 very, very smart and rich venture capitalists. Some of them who co-founded PayPal, and some of them who co-founded Facebook, and that's the level. And some of them who were from the first guys who work in Google, and they have and they are friends of each other, and they are all a little bit on the edge of between 45 and 50s, and they have all in podcast every week. And they talk about politics, they talk about the tech industry, they talk about the economy, they talk about events like FTX, etc.
Yeah,
and
I would recommend I will send the link into this to the notes, and we'll put it in the speaker. But let's listen to a couple of seconds to enjoy them.
Can I tell you a funny story? So I was in, and then when I landed, there was an assistant message on the plane, and then the pilot texted me like, "Hey, bad news. We're not going to be able to take you tomorrow. There's an error message, and if we can't resolve it, we can't fly." I was like, okay. So I text Sachs. I'm like, "Hey, dude, I'm in a really tough spot. Is there any way that I could catch a flight, with you tomorrow?" Absolute dead silence. 3 hours later, pilot Paul texts me and says, "Good news, cleared us. We're going tomorrow." I text Sachs right away. "Hey, no worries. It's all resolved." In 8 seconds, he responds, "Awesome," with an exclamation mark.
Yeah. No, that's the delay. That chart alone, I think, can win the vote.
Okay, let's pull up the chart then. So here is the federal debt, total public debt as a percentage of gross domestic product. As you can see in the 70s and 80s, we were at under 50%. The 90s, we started, growing modestly.
I don't think this matters. I think every self-proclaimed intellectual looks at this chart and says, "Oh my God, we've exceeded 100%. The empire is going to go to ruin." That's not why the empire goes to ruin.
And this is my favorite guy. I mean, he basically came from a very modest background. He from abused parents, and he was very smart. Went to school, became smart, started working at Facebook, invested in them, invested in in Uber and about 100 other companies. He's worth 1.4 billion. And if he talks about the industry, if he talks about what he thinks about crypto, Elon Musk, I mean, all the different things in the tech world, they talk about the tech world in general, and they also talk about the crypto world. I really, really, really enjoy them. I can totally recommend them. So so I would say to everybody, just read them. But the person who I think is really interesting to talk about the crypto world is Katie Wood. Katie Wood. Oops, sorry. Let me see. And Katie is the most optimistic person on the crypto world forever, and she's doing it in a very systematic way. I mean, she's very positive about Tesla, which she thinks will hit, 1,600 the stock price. She thinks that Bitcoin will raise $1 billion, will reach $1 million per Bitcoin, and she has very good ways to back it up. Let's listen to her for a moment.
But on to into the security, look at the blockchains. Let's use the Bitcoin blockchain and Ethereum. What you'll find is they have the infrastructure, the technology has not skipped a beat throughout this entire crisis. In fact, the hash rate, Bitcoin's hash rate is at an all-time high, and that is a real indication of the security of the network. On Ethereum, we're seeing the total value staked at 24 billion. That is an all-time high. So we think the infrastructure is working beautifully. As far as Coinbase, this is an onshore regulated company and wanting to help shape regulations. Brian Armstrong, the CEO, and Alicia, CFO, have been leaning into what's going on right now and saying, okay, regulators, we need more clarity in order to protect investors. Those who wanted to get involved with certain types of crypto were forced offshore, and look at what's happened. So I think that Coinbase is going to come out here looking very, very strong. It just lost a very big competitor in FTX.
What is the market missing, though? Because that could be one narrative, Kathy, but at the same time, we haven't exactly seen shares of Coinbase rally since FTX has collapsed. Do you think to you that represents potentially broader concern about just people's interest in crypto following FTX's collapse?
No, I think it's more fear. I think many people say we don't know what we don't know. So what we do is we step back, put a little perspective into the situation here. And what do we have? So the entire crypto asset ecosystem is an $800 billion ecosystem. Apple is 3 times larger in terms of market cap. So that's some perspective. Many people are saying, well, okay, is this another Lehman? Could this be, could we see the domino effect here? I've just given you one reason why. The banking system back in 08, 09, trillions and trillions of dollars, and it was the global banking system. Right now, we have, it seems, from FTX, $5 to $10 billion in creditors as FTX has filed bankruptcy. They will be making claims. If you look at Lehman, that was $1.2 trillion in claims. So again, just trying to put perspective, this is fraud. This is Madoff. Madoff was $64 billion in claims. Again, FTX, 5 to 10 billion. Now, I know that crypto assets are, they attract a lot of attention. This is, the 3 revolutions we talk about all the time, a new monetary system in terms of the first global, private, not government controlled, digital, rules-based monetary system. That's Bitcoin, a very big idea. DeFi is a very big idea. And while that has been thrown into question in terms of, shifting from one exchange to another, we've had a lot of shifting around. But I think DeFi, in terms of taking the middlemen out of financial services and making the ecosystem much more transparent with much less counterparty risk is going to take off. It will continue to move forward, we believe.
Kathy, I think one of the things we're trying to figure out is how long that we think the.
So that is, and you see, she doesn't give a beat. She's still very convinced. She's saying there is, of course, in the crypto world, there's also the normal things which humans do. There's stupidity, there's fraud, and there's one effect on top of the other. But that also happens in the big fiat world at a scale 1,000 times bigger. And she says the big ideas are still totally intact. And I happen to believe that. I happen to believe that 99% of everything, all the coins in the 99.9% of all the coins in the crypto world are either stupid, are technically not good enough, don't have anything to offer. But out of 25,000 coins which are currently tracked on coin market cap, there's at least 250 coins which are really, really worth it and which will develop further. So that's what I also want to give as a perspective of what's
totally
going
agree with you, Vincent. Totally agree with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We said we do it for half an hour. Then I just wanted to take a quick look at how we are doing. With of course we're Diamond Picks. And the best thing is that you can see in our play mode, which you can basically go to the website Diamond Picks, make an account in 2 seconds, and you come in our play mode, and you can see that since November the 1st, when all this last thing happened, we, if you look, for example, at Hereford, which is our Bitcoin only strategy, we did minus 5.3%, and Bitcoin went down 19%. If we then go back to when did Celsius happen? When did Celsius happen?
In June, the beginning of June.
In June, let's say how we did in June. So in June, it was 46% and 6% we went down. If we look at another strategy, that's the big coins, Duroc, we went 13% down while the market went down 47%. And if we look at my birthday, because my birthday was May the 12th, so let's look at May the 12th and see if
You're
we then
April.
did.
You're on April.
Okay. I need to look at May Pro. Very good. Then you can see, okay, we went down 12% since everything went to hell, and the market went down 55%.
Yeah.
And if we look at Hereford, which is this Bitcoin only, I think that one is really doing well. Yeah, that went down 6%. And we can look at Pennywell, which is the green one. So our strategies went much more, zero minus 10, while the market went a lot further. So you can play with that, and we can execute these kinds of trades, these kinds of smart strategies inside Binance or Bitfavo, and other ones are to come. Please take a look at it and try us out. We are here to protect you, and we're here to help you grow. That's what we do at Diamond Picks, and the coins and the assets are in your own wallet on your favorite exchange. So that's what we want to say. Okay, that is. It's not a boring life in the crypto world, Idan, and you have to keep the faith. Sometimes I also worry about, my God, where is this going? And then I need to step back and I need to listen to other people. Even though I went through this 6 times. When we started in 2000, started to do in 2013. We started with it, and Ronald van Woensel told me about Bitcoin in 2011, and I bought my first 100 Bitcoins, for €7 a pop in 2012, and sold them in 2013 for my to buy a Tesla. That was the first stupid mistake I made. But still, I think the reason why this is interesting is a new monetary system, which is international, not dominated by governments. But still, you see, we need some kind of governance, even though we don't need it to be organized by governments, but we need to have some kind of control. So I really wonder how that's going to happen, because I see that people steal and people are stupid, and we need some oversight and we need some good governance of these institutions. So that's what we learned, but we keep the faith. Anything you expect in the next 2 months?
We just monitor. Listen, we can. I don't know. We don't know. No one knows. If anyone can tell you, they don't know. We're monitoring. We hope there's not going to be another bankruptcy, and we're going to get into a calm period, a little bit of sideways, and then start moving upwards. That's
Yeah.
what I.
Well, I think what we need is, I mean, the international situation is really important. We need inflation to go down. We need a recession which is not too heavy. We need the war in the Ukraine coming to some kind of an understanding. We cannot go on, winter after winter after winter. Everybody's building on my house now to make the whole thing energy neutral. And I'm going to use air conditioning instead of central heating. And I'm going to install warm heat pumps. That's a very good thing that we basically accelerate that, but that needs to be solved and the economy needs to get used to it. And all these big shocks to the crypto systems need to work its way out. Companies need to go bankrupt, be reorganized, and new measurements needs to be implemented in governance. And also there needs to be self-regulations, like, proof exchanges that you basically have my assets into account. I want to know that from Binance. And I want to know that from all the experience and all that craziness of 18%, for staking fees. You and I had a great conversation. You told me about, oh wow, why don't we put all this money into staking? You're always very enthusiastic about new things, and I really go, wow, this is great. But when Luna started to do it at 18%, and Celsius, I think, at 9% or 10%, at a certain point you go like, okay, there needs to be something which I can understand what people do with this money, except providing liquidity. That thing needs to work itself out. I think this will take until quarter one. Quarter one, we need it for the international economy and also the crypto world to work out. And I think from Q2, we will start seeing some positive signs. And then I hope that the second half of 2023, we will be able to go up in value. We at Binance Diamond Picks are really doing our best to also make money on bad times, because that's also, we need to make money in good times, but we also need to make money. We need to protect you at bad times, but we also need to be able to grow. And I think you're doing a really good job in working on those robots. Okay, so far, when do we see each other again? When is our next Diamond Picks?
In 2 weeks' time.
2 weeks' time. Sounds like a good idea. Okay. I'm starting the end video. I just want to say, it says at the end, please make an account. You need 5,000 minimum. That's gone, right? What is the minimum?
Zero. Zero is the minimum.
It's become efficient. You can try us out until 200 euros. We basically manage your money for free. And then above it's 2% a year and 15% of the profit. Okay, see you next time.
I think.